am Amy Vetter, and welcome to the Breaking Beliefs podcast. This valuable time is for you to pause in your day and go on your own self-journey. Discover the beliefs that are holding you back from living your best life at work and at home. Learn from the guests on this show as they share their inspirational stories on how they found ways to break internal beliefs that were no longer serving them. Because if you believe you can, you will. And our podcast begins now. Welcome to this episode of Breaking Beliefs, where I interview Sandra Wiley. She is recognized as a leader in the accounting profession for developing strategies to transform firms into a new consultative business model. As the president of Boomer Consulting, Sandra has helped firms strategically transform their leadership, talent, and growth initiatives. She regularly speaks and writes on these topics at conferences including AICPA Engage and in industry-wide publications. For several years, she has been named as one of the top 25 most powerful women and top 100 most influential women in accounting. In my interview with Sandra, we discuss her journey from growing up on a farm and originally going to college on a music scholarship to eventually becoming the president of Boomer Consulting. She shares how by being open to opportunity, having a little bit of luck along the way, and being flexible has contributed to her success. Welcome to this episode of Breaking Beliefs. I'm here at the CCH conference in Denver, Colorado with Sandra Wiley.
Hello.
From Boomer Consulting. And Sandra, you want to talk a little bit about your background before we get started?
I absolutely will.
Okay.
Today I'm the president of Boomer Consulting, but man, if you take a look at my world and where I started from and where I ended up, there's no crystal ball to how I got here. I mean, it isn't like I woke up when I was a senior in high school and said, oh my gosh, I want to be the president of Boomer Consulting someday. That's just not what happened. So today it is awesome because I am a part of a shareholder team for shareholders. We have 16 employees. We're a completely remote office, which is amazing.
Yeah.
We are so focused on professional services within the CPA market. And so, it's all about public accounting for every one of us. And so it's just been wonderful. This whole experience, 25 years I have been with Boomer Consulting.
Wow.
And even there, I don't think that it was a straight path. I mean,
No.
I didn't join the company thinking, oh, I want to be the president someday or even a shareholder. I just thought it's just a job. And it turned into much more. So I was lucky. There's lots of things that happened along the way. Some of it luck, some of it I just stepped through doors, and it's just been fun.
And you stepped through, which was the biggest
stepped
thing,
through.
right?
That's right.
You didn't hold
That's
yourself
exactly
back.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
So let's just start from you're a little girl.
Yep.
What did you want to be when you grew up?
That's a good one. So I was raised in a town of 500 in the middle of Kansas.
Wow.
And so it's a farming community. My dad was the co-op manager. Everybody knew everybody inside the city limits. And it was, you grew up, honestly, here's what I thought. When I was a senior in high school, I grew up thinking I'm going to be a mom and I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom. And I didn't even really think about going to college. And it's not because my parents didn't push me.
Right.
It was really just because the role models that I saw and that I loved, my grandmother, my mom, all my friends, their moms stayed home, and that was what I thought I was going to do.
Right.
So I went to college. I actually went on a music scholarship.
For what?
Singing. I'm a voice major, and I also play the piano. So
I grew up playing violin and
did
viola.
you really?
Yeah.
It's really interesting too. Side note. I think people that go into this profession and do what we're doing, a lot of them have either, they're actors or they're musicians or something. And so that's.
It's an interesting thing because people will say to me, oh, I can't imagine speaking in front of people. And even in a small room, people can get nervous over that.
Yep.
And I've always tracked it back to practicing violin because you miss a note, it does not sound good. And you are by yourself at those recitals or through an audition, and you've got to practice and practice. And so what people see as the final performance, they don't know you're re-practicing a measure for an hour.
You are right.
And it trains you in how to be prepared.
Yep. And it makes you so you're much more comfortable in front of that audience.
Right. Exactly.
That it's like,
and you know you can screw up.
Yeah, it's going to be
recover.
fine.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to judge you that harshly for it. So it's gonna be fine.
Yeah. So let me just backtrack a little. So you said your mom was a housewife.
Yep.
And you thought you were going to be a housewife. How do you take the leap to go to college? Like when did that shift? So you had a belief system.
Yep.
I'm going to be like my mom.
Yep.
I'm going to live in this town. So when did that shift?
So I think it really shifted so I got married young. I was 18 years old. I went off to college. I went 1 year on a music scholarship to a community college. And
is that why you went to college? Because you got a scholarship?
Yep.
Okay. So someone heard you play or sing.
Yep. And they sing and I could play too. So that it was kind of, I could do both. The vocals what got me there. So I got there. I met a guy. The day I stopped on campus, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, love of my life. And he was a basketball player, and he had gotten a scholarship to go to Reno, Nevada the next year. And he was a couple of years older than I was. So I followed him. I mean, we got married the next summer, and we went running off to Reno, Nevada. And
so did your mom get married young?
Yeah.
So that was something that you already knew you could.
It felt normal.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
It felt normal.
Yeah.
And the truth is, over that 10 years, I got a job in a bank immediately when I got there. And I can't really tell you why, but I was never satisfied ever with just being whatever I was. So
you got a job at a bank because you were looking for income.
Yeah.
Right? So it was
honestly, just looking for a job. I figured I needed a job to kind of just pay the bills while we got started. I grew at the bank and just kept kind of working my way up. And so by the time we were done, I did not have a college degree, but I was a financial analyst at the bank.
Wow.
And it was a 10-year spread. So, but I just always, again, every time somebody would say, hey, would you like to try this? I'd say, oh yeah, absolutely.
But why?
Why
do you think?
That's a really interesting question. I think I have an internal, I didn't know it at the time.
Right.
But I think now I understand. I have this internal competitiveness, even against myself.
Yes.
That I want to succeed. I want to be better. I'm never quite good enough.
Or satisfied.
I'm always looking for what will make me better. And I didn't have any idea. I mean, I wasn't even analyzing it at that point. I mean, I was just going through life. But at the end of 10 years, my husband decided he didn't want to be married anymore. I was not happy either. I was living way away from my family.
Right.
I wanted to go back to college, couldn't see how I was going to get that done. Had 2 little kids at the time. Wasn't an unhappy relationship. I mean, it was all that, right?
Right.
And I just thought, I need to change this. And it was interesting because I think my growing up years were you don't get divorced.
Well, and I was going to say that.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing to
huge.
shift when you've come from, and you took such a different track than your mom. So not feeling like you disappointed anyone by not being a housewife, and that's why this turned out that way.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's all of that. I mean, because you have to get past the head trash of disappointment, because it's going to be disappointing for people. It's going to be even disappointment for myself. I mean, I just really thought you get married once and you're married forever. And that's how my parents were, my grandparents. I was the only person in my family that had been through a divorce. So it was kind of one of those things. But I remember immediately the day that I made the decision. I went to a counselor and I said, I need to fix this.
Right.
And he said, it takes 2 to fix it. And if he doesn't want to fix it, then you can't. And I remember sitting back at that moment and thinking to myself, you know what? I am not happy either. And I've got to figure out another way, another path. And so packed up the kids. We went back to Kansas. I immediately started looking for how do I get through college? I mean, I knew that I had to do that if I was going to support my children. Right. And I had also committed at that point, I am never getting married again. This is never going to happen again. I am not doing this again. And so
laid plans.
So I did the night thing. I went back, got a job at a bank back there because I'd had some experience, went back to school at night, and I had some community college credits. So it took So
you went for finance this time?
I actually went for human resources. My degree is in human resource management.
Okay. And so why did you choose that?
I have always really had while the numbers, so this is always, I always love this because I was a financial analyst, so I can do the numbers. Yeah. I didn't like the numbers. I went home every day feeling exhausted.
Right.
And then but when I was working with people, like if I was working with our clients or with a team of people and I was managing them, I loved that. So when I came back, I actually got a career counselor and I said, I need to figure out my next steps. And they said, let's have you take a couple of tests and at the end of it, she said, Sandra, you're a people person. You've got to do something that you're working with people. And human resources seemed like the right direction. Yeah. So I did that and got my degree. So, and that was, I will say.
And I think that's important. I just want to pause on that. Yeah. Is when we're going through our journey, there's little nuggets of knowledge that hit us, not necessarily from us, from somebody else.
Yep.
And we have to make a choice whether we listen to it or whether we keep pushing forward on the track that we're on. So why did it hit you when she said that you're like, right, I need to totally change my path from the experience that I have?
I think it was, I don't know if this makes sense or not, but it was a heart and a gut thing. The truth is, I'd heard other things and it just didn't make me feel good, right? It didn't make me feel like, oh yeah, that's the right thing to do. I just kind of felt, eh. When she said that and she started talking about the people side of the business, and I was like, yeah. I mean, it was like I brightened up. It's kind of a strange thing to think about, but and it hit me and I was like, that is it. That's what I want.
This is so important for everyone to hear, I think, because our bodies actually tell us a lot of information that we choose to ignore. I know I've made a lot of bad business decisions going into it. I knew that something didn't feel right. And I kept going because I'm like, well, I can get past that because what I want is this. And so it won't be that bad. And it ends up turning out exactly the way your body was giving you warning signals. For whatever reason, it's like our animal instinct.
Yep, I agree with you.
And so it's the same thing with good things. What you're saying is I felt happiness when she said that, and I walked toward it versus away from it. And you have to have confidence to do that too.
Yep. And I think confidence is the outcome of those things that you do, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I really felt like the confidence that I had after that moment, and it was, that's a hard time in your life, right? I'm raising kids. So I'm getting kids up in the morning, taking them to daycare, going to work, coming home at night, feeding them, go to class at night, have a babysitter come over. I mean, it was a lot of
an investment.
A lot of investment. And but I kept thinking, but at the end of this, then I can provide better, right?
So
I
you're
can be
thinking
a better, you're always thinking down the road.
Yeah.
And so I finished that and I got a job in human resources. And then I met a gentleman that I thought, he was just wonderful. He's a great guy. And he was just truly different than anybody I had ever dated before.
Yeah.
So all these other guys I had dated him? At work. I mean, he was at work and he was a financial analyst and
she was in HR.
And I was in HR.
I picked that one up.
I got that
one. You graduated in it, but maybe not.
And truly, he was just different. I I'd always dated these jocks and I'd always dated these like kind of egotistical guys. And he was just this down to earth, wholesome, very quiet guy.
Yeah.
And he's just different. And, but we dated for 5 years and in that process,
you're like, I'm not rushing into this.
I'm not. And he wasn't either. I mean, both of us were just like, well, we'll see.
Right.
And at the end of that, then it was like, it was the right time. And when you talk about kind of pivotal points, I mean, the divorce was one of them. I mean, that moment, going back to school, that was another pivot, right?
Yeah.
Getting remarried again was another pivot point.
Yeah.
It's just interesting that all of that happens and everything still feels like, okay, I'm still moving forward. And I think I've always had that feeling and I've always wanted to just keep going forward. And it's never just, I'm good. I'm status quo. I'm good.
Well, and I think it's not that everything goes well as you're moving forward, And so when you're hitting those moments of turmoil, questioning your decisions and so forth, it's having the faith in your vision. At that same time and belief in yourself.
I agree.
Yeah.
And if we could instill that in our next generation of people, that it's not always going to be perfect. It's not always going to be peachy, right? It's you're going to have times when things are going to feel yucky, but you always keep your eye on what's coming.
Yeah.
And keep your eyes going forward and you'll be fine. But
and grab the opportunity.
Grab the opportunities.
Because a lot of people, I think the opportunities come their way and then they're like, oh, I'm not ready.
Yep.
Or something. And you're never going to be ready.
That's exactly right. It is never perfect timing.
No, because
right?
you have to learn your next new role every time.
Right. It's exactly right.
Yeah.
So I stayed in banking and we got married, and, now he adopted the children from my previous marriage.
Wow.
So, and then we had one together. So all of that kind of transpired. And in 1992, Gary Boomer, I was looking for another job. I thought in banking, here's what happened. In banking, they were doing a lot of mergers and acquisitions. Sound familiar to the accounting firm right now?
Exactly.
And my job for the last year was firing people, laying them off because we would consolidate.
Which is rough.
It was a nasty job. And I thought, I just want to do something different. So I saw it in the newspaper, and it was a sales assistant for Gary Boomer at Varney and Associates CPA firm. And I thought, and I knew somebody there, and I said, what do you think about that job? And they said, oh, you do not want that job. I said, well, I need to get out of banking. I said, even if it's just a short-term job, I just need to take a break. And well, I'll introduce you. And so Gary and I sat in the conference room at Varney and Associates and talked for 2 hours. And at the end of it, he goes, man, I want to hire you. And I said, oh my gosh, I think I'd love working here. And I went home that night, and my husband's like, so what are you going to do? And I said, I do not know. But I really liked him.
Felt good. Yeah.
I liked him. And we had so much in common, and we both just thought the same, I think. Right. It was just a mind meld. And I thought, I just really liked him. And I did still think, you know what, if it doesn't work out, no big deal. I just go get another job, right?
Right.
It ended up being another really pivot point for me, because Gary would tell you, I would not say this, but Gary said, the day I met you, I knew you'd be a great consultant. And he said, you didn't know it, but I knew it. And I knew that the profession needed somebody to talk about talent.
Right.
Because they were all talking about technology and all kinds of things, but they were not talking about their people.
Right.
And so, after that, it kind of just blossomed. I mean, as doors opened, I walked through.
And we have to acknowledge the people that open those doors for us as well, because a lot of times we get in our own career path, and we're not looking for who do we pull up with us or see potential. And sometimes people aren't ready. Like if he had said to you right then, well, I want to hire you as a consultant, you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
But he knew you weren't ready for that conversation. But when you've been in a certain field, you know how to target, like they've got that right personality. They have that right skill set. It may not be perfect right now, but I know it can be there. And the fact that he opened that door for something that you didn't even realize you were going to walk. I mean, you were going to walk through, but you didn't know where it was going to go.
I had no idea where it was going to go.
Yeah.
That's exactly. And I am forever grateful to Gary for opening that door, because I didn't plan this journey. I didn't think that this would, I wasn't conscious. It wasn't like, I think so much of the time kids, even my own children, have wanted to have a plan.
Right.
This is what I'm going to do, and this is where I'm going. And I just keep telling them, don't have so much of a hard and fast plan that you miss the beauty along the way, or the potential opportunities that you didn't even think
might pivot
about.
you.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't get too stuck. Right. And that's what happened. And so 10 years into that journey, I became a partner in a firm that I should never have been a partner in, right? Because it was a family-owned company.
Right.
Every bit of Boomer Consulting was owned by Boomer people. And I remember saying to Gary one time, he said, do you ever want to be a partner? And I said, well,
my last name's not Boomer.
Are you going to adopt me? Are you going to adopt me? Because I think that's the only way it's going to happen. And he goes, no, I think we could figure something out. And so, today it's different because there's more shareholders than just Boomers. But at that time there wasn't. And he said, he went back to the family and said, I really want to do this. And they all agreed. The whole family said, yeah, absolutely.
And I have to say, that's a really hard decision to make.
Oh, yeah.
Because even family corporations, even companies that go public or whatever, that have a lot of family and leadership, it's hard to have an equal say at that level, because it's still the family. They're going to take care of their own a lot of times.
That's right.
So to feel like you can step in that and still have a voice is a challenge. So how did you handle that walking in, so that you felt like you were on equal footing?
So I did a couple of things. There's a couple of things I think that happened all at the same time. So Jim Boomer had come back to the business at exactly the time that they had offered me some shares of stock. And so we entered into that together. And so Jim being the son, and I was just, one of the workers, but I had much more experience at the company. And I, again, you just have to be blessed with the people. Jim's support of me and making me equal to him and the decision making along the way has been ridiculously phenomenal. I mean, he didn't have to do that, and he absolutely just treated me like I was one of the family.
And
almost.
That's very unique, because
very unique.
Especially children they've pictured themselves to take over, right? And I think there's a learning lesson in leadership to take the ego out.
Yep. Because
you could get in the way of major progress of a company, and that's a really hard thing to do.
I think so too.
Yeah.
So like I said, I'm lucky because I think Jim had the right personality. I mean, like you said, ego could have absolutely gotten in the way of that, and it wouldn't have turned out like it did.
Right.
It didn't. And Gary is a phenomenal leader because he is allowing us to lead, and he's stepping away. Not out, but he's stepping back a little, and he's doing his thing, but he's letting us lead the company, and it just feels right. I mean, it just feels really, again, I'm extremely grateful to all of that, how it's happened. I also think because they are so strong, and because I think we are all strong people, I think we have built a great team. Yes. And so another pivot point for me, because you get all wrapped up in your career.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you and I are a lot alike there, It's like you get caught up in that.
Yeah.
And
it's exciting.
It is. I love it.
It's up days, down days, but then you're like, okay, what's next?
Ready. I'm ready. So I had to slow down one time because 12 years ago now, I found out I had thyroid cancer.
Oh, wow.
And it was kind of one of those things where it was completely weird that they found it because nothing was wrong. I mean, I didn't feel bad. I went in for a normal checkup. And you know how they always feel around on your neck? I never knew why they felt around your neck. I don't know. I don't know what they're looking for. And all of a sudden, my regular doctor said, have we ever found anything on your thyroid before? And I said, what's a thyroid?
Right, exactly.
I don't know what thyroid is. And he said, well, it's a little gland here in your neck. And have we ever found it? I said, no. And he goes, well, I think I feel a little bump on there. He says, probably just a cyst, but we should have it checked.
What a great doctor that he was.
It was awesome. In fact, the oncologist I went to said, it's weird that he found it. It's hard to find because it was on the back side of it. I mean,
you weren't having any symptoms.
And no symptoms. And so I called Gary first, and I told him, and then I told Jim, and they were just like, immediately their response was, we've got you. We'll take over your clients. We'll take over your engagements. You go take care of yourself. Everything's fine. And we'll see you back when you can get back. And it ended up being, I don't know, a couple of months, and actually about 3 months. And I went through all the treatments and all that stuff. And then, I still go back for some treatments, but the bottom line is it's gone. I mean, life is good. But it does make you, whenever you're faced with, even if it's something that they know they can treat, it's faced with mortality, and you're faced with, okay, are you doing all the things you really want to be doing? Because if tomorrow life was gone, have you done it all? Right?
Yeah.
And so the thing I had to really think about was, am I giving my family enough? Because I really get into my job, and I really get deep into my job.
Right.
And I had to step back and had to really, and so I think I balance my life much better now because of that.
Yeah.
Because it made me think about it. And I think I got clobbered over the head.
Right.
To say, you need to pay attention, right?
Right. Well, and even the support to allow you to heal without stress, knowing you still had a job.
Yep.
But, that wasn't, because I think a lot of times when people get sick and then they're still worried about like, will I have a job? Will someone take my job?
Yeah.
And those are the moments too, where you're like holding on too tight when you need to focus on something else.
You need to take care of yourself, right?
Yeah. Else you're never going to really come through that. Yeah.
Exactly.
So how did it change your work-life balance after that? Like what changes did you make?
I think I really tried hard to, so I kept trying to integrate everything. So even when I was with my family, I was still kind of watching my email. And I don't do that anymore. I have a separation And it's not like all the time. I mean, it's not like I don't go home at night and don't do any work.
Right.
I go home at night, I'm with my husband. If the kids are there, I'm with my kids.
Yeah.
And then later at night when they're all going to bed, then I'll get back on my email again. If they have something like, this is the greatest thing ever. I went on a 2.5 week vacation in August this year. I went to England to see our daughter. Our youngest daughter got married and she lives in England now. And 2.5 weeks, no technology. I left my computer at home. I left my phone at home. I mean, I truly just disconnected.
Yeah.
I never would have done that. I never would have done that before. And I just honor being around my family now. So when I'm with them, I'm totally there.
Right.
And I wasn't like that before.
No.
I really tried to make it all
And it's an interesting shift as you get older, because like, as you're saying that, I'm like, you know, I think I burned myself out in my 30s. I can say that. Like where, like once I got in my 40s, I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. You know, I mean, I have no interest in, and anytime I can feel where I'm working too much, it actually hurts me.
Yeah.
Where I'm like
physically.
I gotta like step back, and what do I need to stop doing now? Because it's just stressing me out, and it's actually not producing more result.
Yep. It's like the productivity actually slows down.
Yeah.
If you're just totally, so our company is very into the strategic coach. And that is one of the things that strategic coach teaches you is balance your time.
Yeah.
You absolutely cannot be really, really good focused.
Your brain doesn't work that way.
Unless you've had really, really good free days where you've really let go of all that. And man, I was on fire when I came back from England.
Yeah.
I was like, watch out.
Yeah.
I am ready to go. I'm not tired anymore.
Right.
I'm good. And I will say there are times when I kind of almost, I don't know, breakdown is not the right word.
Yeah.
It's almost like I just get like, I don't want to be at work anymore.
Right.
I don't want to see people. And I know then, it's actually before that, if I really listen to the cues,
it's overwhelmed
when it's time to stop.
Yeah. Well, and the first time I ever took a 2-week vacation, I was working for an international company, and everyone that lives internationally, like they take 4 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, they don't even understand Americans at all with this like 1 week thing. And so I tried it because they shut down the company during the holidays, and then I extended it another week. And one thing I noticed was it actually takes a week to get yourself to relax.
Yep.
And that second week was better than the first week.
Yep.
And I was like, wow, there's really something to this.
There is something to this vacation thing. Yeah. You're right. And I've noticed we should take a lesson from the Europeans. Let's face it. What's wrong with us?
Right.
We're overworked. We're just.
Yeah, absolutely. So what kind of lessons that you've learned along the way that you use in your leadership style that you try to make sure with your teams that they're learning through their career as well? Like, what are some important things that you think you bring?
You know, whenever I am coaching or teaching the people that are on our team or even my clients, I cannot tell you how important continual learning is.
Yeah.
Continually looking at what's out there, what's down the road, and not just about you, just about the world in general.
Yeah.
And always try to stay just a little bit up to date on all that, because you don't want to let yourself get behind. So I always like that. I always say to people, walk through the door.
Yeah.
You can always stop. You can always come back. But you're not always going to get those opportunities. So when an opportunity opens the door, you need to walk through and you need to give it a try. Grab hold and let it go. And don't be so blind that you don't see the doors that open. I've watched people that doors were there. They were open and they don't seem to notice them. I mean, it's like they're so stuck in their little bubble that they can't see that what's right in front of them. And when you say, well, have you ever thought about, and you fill in the blank, they go, oh, yeah. So I think, and that's the other thing I would tell people is don't be afraid to get coached.
Right.
Sometimes having somebody else help you is okay.
Totally. And I feel like coaching gets such a bad stigma because it's misused in corporations. So they use it for people that are in trouble a lot of times versus using it as a tool to enhance everybody. Because the thing is, as you move up through your career, you move up because of your expertise, but not because you're a good people person.
Right.
And if you don't have someone coaching you or training you along the way to like recognize what you're bringing into that. How do you change that? How do you open yourself up to listening?
Right.
It's hard to be a good leader because you've actually you're just good at what you do.
Right.
You know?
Right. That's exactly right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's not a weakness.
No.
One thing I did in my career was actually hire one independently in my company.
Oh, nice.
Because I felt like I needed that third party opinion with no one that was a stake in the game, that the company wasn't.
They're not trying to get you to do with the company.
Yeah. And the company wasn't going to hear about my session, that sort of thing. So even if you have to do that,
Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think the only other thing I would say is that I really believe in gut instinct. I really believe if people could really understand how to listen to what their gut is telling them, that I think they'd make better decisions. I think that they would put themselves out there more. I think that it would their life would probably be better. I agree. When you said earlier, you've made bad business decisions, every really horrible decision I've made in my life, and there's been plenty, every one of them, I can go back and say, you know what? I knew it. I knew it. When I did it, I was like, something inside of me was saying, stop. And I didn't listen. I thought I was smarter than that, right?
Right,
and
exactly.
So at the end of the day, now, I've also had people say, would you go back and change anything? I would not.
Mm-mm.
Not one thing.
Yeah.
And it's because everything that I've been through, good, bad, and ugly, got me to here. I have an amazing husband. I have an amazing job. I have 3 beautiful children, their spouses, 5 grandkids. I mean, how can you? I couldn't go back and do anything different because that's got me to where I am today.
Absolutely. Every experience teaches you and readies you for your next opportunity or experience. Absolutely. So I like to end with some rapid fire questions, where you get to pick a category.
Okay.
All right. So family and friends is one category. Health, money, spiritual.
I'll do family and friends.
Okay. So things or actions with my family or friends that I don't have that I want.
Things that I don't have with my family and friends
that I want.
I want to have more time just for playing, and not actual events where we have to go, like Thanksgiving, Christmas, all that. I just like to go and have like a weekend play time with my kids and with my family and with my friends. I think I want more time for that.
Okay. Things or actions that I do have that I want.
Oh, that I do have. I have a very, very close relationship with all of my kids and my grandkids.
So nice. I've seen pictures.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I hear people say they're not that close, and I just feel sorry for them because I love my kids. And my husband probably gave me the nicest compliment he's ever given me. We were at a conference one time, and it was a couples conference, and each couple, like, we had to say something about our spouse. Yeah. So I had to say something about him. And then he said, Sandra is the heartbeat of our family. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I would want to be. Yeah. Right? that part of it, I love my family. So
that's awesome. Yeah. And they're so beautiful, the whole family.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So things or actions I don't have that I don't want.
Things that I don't have that I don't want. Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I don't have that I don't want. Oh, I think that with my friends and family, I don't have, I don't know if this is right or not.
Yeah.
Frenemies.
Yeah.
I don't want them. I don't really have them anymore.
But there was a time in your life.
There was a time in my life that I thought everybody who had been my friend or that I thought should be my friend, I should be friends with them.
Right.
And they suck the life out of you.
Yes.
And so I finally have gotten to the point where I've let go of those, but I don't want them back either.
Right.
I really, when I learned that word frenemies, I thought, oh my gosh, that's the truth.
Yes.
You're kind of, even me, I was acting as their friend, but I wasn't. I mean, it was sucking the life out of me. So I'm glad that's.
And it's being aware again that someone's doing that, right?
Yeah. And that's a hard thing.
It is hard.
And
because you want something else than it actually is. And you have to be honest.
I think it's hard with friends. It's super hard with family.
Yes.
And every once in a while I hear people talk about their family members that are just, terrible. Mm-hmm. And I think that you should even give yourself a pass on that. Just because you were born into a family does not mean you're stuck there forever.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Last one. Things or actions that I do have that I don't want.
Things that I do have that I don't want. Oh, probably I still have a guilty feeling of taking too much time off. And I probably should get over that, right?
Yeah.
I still have that guilt of, I can't take more than this much time. I wish I was like the Europeans, right?
Right.
But I could take 4 weeks off and just not feel guilty about it. Right. I don't want to leave my team stuck.
Right.
And now they don't ever feel like that. Right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's
exactly.
not like they said, Sandra, are you kidding? Why are you taking them?
Right, yeah.
It's me. It's internal.
Yeah.
So if I could get rid of that, that'd probably be a good thing.
And the other good thing about taking time off, it lifts other people up because they've got to take on responsibilities they've never had. And so you're giving people opportunities to show what they can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So anything before we end that you want to make sure people take away from our conversation, or anything about Boomer Consulting you want people to know?
I would just tell you that Boomer is kind of like a family, and we have amazing services. I think we care deeply for our clients, and I think that comes from the fact that the ownership group is like that.
Yes.
They care deeply for their team. They care deeply for each other, and they care deeply for their clients. Therefore, I think we serve them well. I would also say that the only other thing I would say, just as a whole, it's mind, body, spirit. It's all of that comes together. I answered the questions about my family, but when I said this earlier today in a session, if you keep your priorities right, life can be pretty darn sweet.
Yeah.
My priorities are God first, family second, career third.
Yeah.
And if I keep them in that order, if I really keep myself centered there, life is good.
Yeah.
Life is good.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah.
This was fun.
It is fun. And now time for our mindful moments in this episode with Sandra Wiley. This episode was a great way to look at our life path. And one of the biggest things that I take away from the discussion with Sandra is we never know where our life is going to go, whether that be personally or professionally. And it really takes those moments of stepping back and not putting too much pressure on ourselves if we haven't achieved what we thought we were going to achieve, or we have a plan that is too stringent, that doesn't allow us to pivot and move the way that life just happens. And as you saw with Sandra's story of really starting out thinking she was going to be a housewife and not working, ending up in college, getting married young, having children, and how when she went through her first divorce, that getting rid of what she called that head trash of not being down on yourself because your life might be different than others or what others might expect of you. It's really important that we appreciate the things about ourselves that are unique, that create strength, and also that create our success. And when she was at her lowest moments, she didn't stop. And I think that is another lesson that we can all take, is that, life is not a straight path, and we can't control everything that happens to us. And there are some that might back off or wallow, and then there are others that say, you know what, I'm going to be sad for myself. I'm going to give myself a certain amount of time, and then I'm going to go take hold of what's next. And I think she's just a great example of what she called the way that she moved through her life with heart and gut. Knowing what was important to her from her heart standpoint that would be true to her authentically, but also listening to your gut instinct. And when things just don't feel right, even if you want things to work out, what you need to listen to in your body and from the people around you that are giving you signals that it may be time to pivot, not give up everything you have, not losing what makes you great, but looking at the experience that you have and how do you move forward. That it's not going to be a perfect path, that things are not always going to be great. But when you see opportunity, and it might be just this faint whisper, but how do you grab hold of it and not let it go by, or let that head trash, or where we have that self-talk that says we're not good enough, or someone like us doesn't deserve it, and then we don't take hold of that opportunity. Sometimes we have to push past that. And, in my head, a lot of times there's moments when I have fear, and it's kind of like when I was little, diving off a high dive and not wanting to do it. If I looked down into the water, it looked too far. But sometimes you just have to jump and not think about it, because when you think about it too long, then that's when that head trash starts, where it might get in the way of just opening that door for you to walk through it. And I think that was a really important thing, is that when people open that door for you, or when you see those opportunities, that there's just these signals that there's an opportunity for you to walk through. Don't shut that door. See what it is. Now, maybe you decide that you're not going to take that opportunity for, the right reason, but maybe you can push past your fears and really take advantage of what is in store for you. And I think another important lesson when she talked about getting sick and working at Boomer Consulting, and how they said, "We got you." And a lot of times in business, I think this is the part we forget, that we're so driven on numbers and so driven on what needs to get done, that we forget that we need to have each other's backs, and that we're all human, and any experience that one person is going through, you could go through as well. And so having that open heart to the people that you work with, and not looking at it as a political opportunity or a business opportunity for yourself if that person is taken out for a while. Instead saying, "We got you, we're here for you." And this can be good things as well. It doesn't always have to be as extreme as having cancer, but because they had her back, it helped her heal, because she didn't have the stress of worrying about, will she have a career if she gets better, and so forth. So I think it's really important that we think about, how do we support the people around us that we work with, to make sure that everybody, if they were to look at you, would they say that you have their back? Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Breaking Beliefs podcast. I hope you will take a moment to pause before entering back into your day, to reflect on this podcast and note 1 to 2 actions you are inspired to do from today's conversation that you could incorporate into your life. To read the full blog and listen back to this episode or any other, you can find them at www.amyvetter.com/Breaking Beliefs podcast, and related videos on my YouTube channel. For daily inspiration, follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Amy Vetter CPA. I hope that you will choose to like this and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and more, so that you can join us for more inspiration on our next episode.